And let's start this session. Uh, okay, so that's fine. Okay. So today's agenda would be around mainly these core items. Okay. So first we will start our session with Azure Arc overview. So to explain you guys what is Azure Arc as a technology, what feature it provides, how customers can employ Azure Arc, to bring their on-premise or multi-cloud environment-based resources into Azure, connect to Azure, and then enable Azure native services like Azure Monitor, Azure and Azure Update Manager, like Security Defender for Cloud. So all those native Azure services you can enable on your on-prem or multi-cloud based resources to take benefit. Then we will see Arc enabled server. So primarily my session is around two key areas: Arc enabled servers and then Azure Local. So in between, we will see what are the other core features we can enable along with Arc enabled servers, such as, let's say, once we onboard our servers to Azure Arc, we will see how we can enable Azure Update Manager for those on-premise or multi-cloud environment-based machines. We will see how we can secure Arc enabled server using Defender for Cloud. We will also touch base to governance, like how we can ensure that, once we onboard our machines to Azure Arc, how we can, ensure that they are not drifting from the best practices. We can use Azure policies to ensure that, they follow certain best practices. Then for customers, I've seen some customers within Qatar where they are still using legacy operating system, let's say Windows Server 2012 R2, SQL Server 2012 R2. So those systems are out of support, end of life. But by using Azure Arc technology, you can enable extended security updates for those systems. So let's say for some reason, if customer cannot eliminate, migrate, upgrade those systems, so, but at the same time would like to extend their security by installing monthly updates and all. So this is a very nice feature, and we can enable this using Azure Arc. We will also see how we can enable monitoring, change tracking on these Arc enabled machines. And lastly, in the end of our session, we will see the other second part of this session, which would be around Azure Local. So we will see like what is Azure Local in general, how you can deploy, what are the deployment options available, what core features, functionality it provides. And one of the interesting thing we can do, like, we can have Arc enabled data controllers. Like, let's say you can also host a SQL managed instance running in your own environment. Like, when you have Azure Local, you can run AKS on-prem within your Azure Local lab machines. And lastly, for students or for people or for customers, those who have not touched or did not try Azure Local, I have some very cool labs or learning resources which I will share with you. So let's begin. Can you take me to the next slide? Okay, so just to give you a quick overview, what is Azure Arc in general? So it is nothing but extending Azure capabilities, Azure native services to your on-premise environment or multi-cloud environment. Let's take an example. So you are a customer, you migrated your virtual machine to Azure. Wonderful. But what about those machines which are left behind on-premise? Or let's take another example. You are a customer, those who have on-premise, plus, you have other cloud environments such as GCP, AWS, but you would like to monitor, manage, secure, and patch all your machines, whether they are Azure native machines, your on-premise machine, or other cloud environment, GCP, Google, and AWS. So within single platform, a single control plane you can use as a Azure Arc, it would allow you to onboard first these machines to Azure Arc, and then from single place you can patch, monitor, secure, And inventory is one of the very cool feature. Let's say, for customer, they sometime or not, I would say sometime, most of the time, if you run into any customer, ask him how many servers they have, they would not be able to give a correct answer, because the inventory is spread across multiple environments, so they have to check multiple places to ensure that how many servers they have. But with Azure Arc, we will see how we can take this benefit. Next slide. So Zahir, just for me to also understand, because I'm also learning, can I think of Azure Arc as like the bridge that connects my cloud to my on-prem? Exactly, 100%. This is a bridge between your on-prem to Azure. Okay, so if you see here, exactly, we are talking about a single control plane which provides by Azure Arc. So what we do as a first step, we are taking all these. So first of all, let's say we have a environment which is spread across multiple data centers. So within a same city, within a same country, or even over spread over multiple countries, we are using multiple clouds. We are using AWS, GCP, and then we have some edge devices or location. So these resources are running here. Now, and these resources could be your physical server, virtual machines, they could be Linux machines, Windows machines. So, what I will do, I will onboard these resources or machines to Azure using Azure Arc. It's a agent based solution. We will explain this like in the upcoming slides. So when you install these agents on a Linux or Windows machine, you onboard them to Arc. So in Azure, so you get a metadata resource created in Azure. So once these resources are created, so you can see side by side like with other native Azure resources. Let's say you have Azure IS virtual machine. Once you onboard a Windows server to Azure Arc, you would see a new resource gets created with for the same server which is located on premise. So now you can patch both machines, native machines and Arc machines. You can secure both machines. You can monitor both type of machines. So this way, this is first path. You bring these resources to the cloud, and then as a result, you can enable all those amazing features on your on-premise, or they are located in GCP, Google, anywhere. So the fundamental concept with Azure Arc is that keep your resources wherever they are located, but using Azure Arc, you have a single control plane and you can manage and optimize everything you can do along with that. So in Microsoft, we have a adaptive cloud approach where we keep the same thing, like the same concept is broadcasted, that you have your multiple type of resources spread across multiple environments, multiple cloud vendors, and all. With using this adaptive cloud approach, keep your resources wherever they are located, but we using Azure Arc, you can have a single control plane to manage an end-to-end life cycle of the services or the resources. This is one of the example, like you know, I would say, like it's almost every customer's situation. So let's say in old days, like when we used to have only on-premise, or maybe for some customers still a situation where they are not exposed to cloud. So let's take an example of on-premise only. A customer is keeping all their stuff on-premise now for monitoring, for management, for inventory, for securing. They are using multiple tools. Let's say for some time I've seen, like within the same company, within the IT department, the security team is using a different monitoring tool such as manage engine tool, while the system admin for the systems team, they are using operations manager for the monitoring. Similarly, network team would be using another tool. So always there are different tools are being used. So it becomes a difficulty that the single source of truth, or like reporting, governance, and all those things are not very easy. So customers are having difficulty. They need constantly a VPN connection to manage their servers or perform any activity on their machines. Whereas this situation get further worse when you have on-prem with multi-cloud environment. So let's say now a customer is not having on-premise challenges, but if they are using multiple cloud environments like GCP, AWS, Azure. So they have, assets spread across multiple environments. So in order for them to manage, secure, monitor these devices, they need to use multiple tools, software. So in this case, it's not very easy for the IT teams to, have a single pane of glass, one system or one environment to manage everything. Whereas with Azure Arc, a unified approach, what we can do, the same concept, you keep all your asset wherever they are located, but with Azure Arc, you bridge them and bring them to Azure Arc. And then with using this approach, you can enable all the nice, cool feature of Azure, where with some of them, let's say we can secure the assets using Defender for Cloud. We can monitor all the machines from Azure monitors and update them using Azure Update Manager. So you can see that, from the previous state where, teams are, juggling between different tools, but in this approach, single tool, single pane of glass, one control environment, you have all your assets available, and you can manage and maintain from there. Can you?
Yeah, Zahir, I'm actually curious to know, like, why would I go with Azure Arc? Is there something like Google Arc, AWS Arc, or Azure's like the only cloud provider that has this functionality? Curious.
There are some sort of, here and there tools are available, but the way Azure provides, let's say there is a connector available for AWS. So you can just connect that, and you can pull all the assets into Arc. So the level of complex flexibility provided by Azure Arc, it's not available with any other tool.
Right. The previous slide, there some of the resources are mentioned. What type of resources we can enable with Arc. So does it mean it is only applicable for Windows license resources? For example, I have a Oracle R2 database 2008 sitting on my on-prem.
Okay.
So can I onboard that and manage the that thing?
See, it all depends. Arc is an agent, Azure Arc is an agent-based solution. So there are certain, Linux releases, operating system which are supported by Azure Arc. It's a quite extensive list. I will show you that list. So if your system falls under that list, very much we can do that, and you can install the agent. And I will show you. I have a certain Linux and Windows machine, and it's pretty much easy. Like, you just run some commands. What it does is nothing but use your tenant, like your intra ID tenant, and your subscription details, and you just execute it. It installs a very lightweight agent. Once the agent is installed, it would create and onboard that machine and create a metadata resource. So it's pretty much easy. And to answer your question, yes, it can be done.
On Microsoft.
Yeah, definitely. Linux releases are supported.
So Zahir, just for those, because I come from AI. When we say agent, I'm talking about AI agents. So like an agent in this context is like what, like an executable or some software that
Exactly. Agent server technology. Like, there is a server and there is an agent binary. You install it on the machine.
And then you need to open the connectivity.
Exactly, 100%, 100%.
No service.
Yeah. And now I will have a quick demo, and I can show this trick to them.
Taking software to learn well. Do you want to zoom just a little bit for the people at the back?
Okay, so you guys can hear me if I'm everybody. Okay, lovely. So you can see this is a console for Azure Arc. Okay. And when we say Azure Arc enabled server, they comes under the category of machines. So these are currently all my onboarded machines. Consider them machines which are running on my on-premise data center, or they are running in other cloud environment, could be a GCP, AWS. So all I need is to install an agent, to complete the onboarding process, and these machines will be visible here. So imagine this Linux machine or this Windows machine is not located in Azure. It is located in your on-premise environment within your data center. But when I onboard this machine, it created this metadata resource. It is nothing but if I go and delete this resource, it would not hurt in any way to your on-premise machine. This is just like you can say a placeholder or a pointer, resource. So why we have this resource? So when I issue any instruction, let's say this is my Arc machine located on premise. If I delete, it would get deleted, but it would not hurt in any way. But what we can do, I can connect to it. I can, let's say, if this machine is added, you can see there are some recommendations from a security standpoint, like, this machine is part of my Defender for Cloud plan. And you can see here Microsoft servers is on, like, because I have enabled in Defender for Cloud for Arc enabled machines. So it would take a license and it would just act as if it is a Azure native virtual machine. It is providing me all the security best practices that, okay, over here you have an issue, you can go and fix. Another thing is this, what we can do, I can enable Azure updates on this one. So, I can patch this machine from Azure portal. So this is the fundamental concept of Arc, that your machine is sitting wherever it is, primarily, let's say, on premise or other cloud environment. And by using Azure Arc as a bridge, you have enabled this machine to be integrated into your cloud environment. And then you can enable all the services, the same thing which you were doing on your native Azure services. So let me again go back to the onboarding process to give you a full idea.
So so is this a virtual machine of the original machine that's on premise, or is it just a small method that's connected?
Let's say let me give you this. When I connect to this one, so what I've done, to build this lab, these are actually Azure virtual machine, okay? But I have removed the Azure clients from this one, Azure IS virtual machine client, to act it as a Azure on-premise virtual machine. So what I'll do, I will now connect to this machine. So you can imagine now that now we are connected to a on-premise virtual machine running in your data center. And to give you a full picture, let's say again, I go to Azure Arc from the very beginning. If we would like to onboard a new machine, okay? So this is the const. So what we do, this is my subscription, and I'm gonna use this resource group where the metadata resource will be created for the one which I'm trying to onboard. So now region, let's say I use West Europe. I can use Qatar as well. So what type of system I'm trying to onboard? It's a Windows or Linux. So I'm doing a Windows one. Perfect. So for now, I'm gonna use private public endpoint because I don't have a gateway created. But for customers, if they want public or private, both options are available. And so there is a concept that when you try to onboard a machine to Azure, so there should be authentication needs to be performed, because system would understand that there is someone who's trying to create a resource in Azure. It has to be authenticated operation. So if you are doing one time one machine, you can manually authenticate. So when you execute a script, it would ask you to authenticate, let's say, device-based login. But what we have done, because we gonna be doing a machine onboarding at a scale. Let's say I have a Active Directory domain environment where I have hundreds of servers. Okay, so I want to run the script using group policy to onboard hundreds of machine, and I don't want to authenticate myself manually for each machine. So what we can do, I have created a service principal. So what this service principal is doing, this is nothing but a app registration within Intra ID. And I have assigned certain roles such as, like, Azure Arc onboarding role to this service principal. And you can see that within the drop-down menu, I can see this service principal. So what it would do now, it is asking me that the resources which will be created in Azure, do you want them to assign certain tags? Let's say I create 2, 3 scripts, like, one script for my production. So when I onboard, the production tag will be associated with that resource. Similarly for staging and other. So I said next, and what it would do, it would give me a script. This is a PowerShell script. Let's say for now here, I do here this machine, a Windows machine. I've already created a script.
Question, Zahir, when you were choosing the region over there, so like that's the region of the Azure Arc resource.
Yes.
So that means the metadata will be saved in that.
In that region.
And it's just what really gets stored. It's
just a metadata resource. Like as we say, because if it was a data, we would think about like, okay, I would retain it like in my own region. And imagine it's a physical server. Anyway, this resource would not actually bring any your on-prem personal data. So it's just a metadata resource. So I can go and delete the resource, re-onboard it. It does not do anything. It's just like a pointer resource. So when you issue the instruction, towards this machine, then it would talk to the agent sitting down on the physical or the virtual machine that, okay, I received the instruction for the administrator that go and check for the latest updates. Similarly, this agent would know, okay, I have to send, my monitoring data to this feed. So it's just instruction passing down. That's it. Nothing more than that. So let's say this is my Windows machine, and this is my onboarding script. Okay. I am just simply running this script, and what it would do.
so this script gets generated from the portal after you
Exactly.
find all of the projects.
Some errors are coming because I have this is not actually an on-premise machine. It's a Azure machine. So some portions of Azure we have disabled it. So while it's executing, it's giving some errors. But on a normal machines, I personally have done like hundreds of machines in past, and in it was within a minute or 2-3 minutes, all your machines get on board. And once they are onboarded, you can just enable these services. So it's very amazing experience.
What's doing right now is just basically creating the metadata to connect it to the Arc.
Yes, exactly. Or let me give you this a full picture by showing you from the control panel. So, there is a binary resource, the binary installation. The agent itself gets installed, downloaded from internet, and then it gets installed. In my case, because this machine was earlier part of the Azure Arc, so you can see the first binary software, Azure Connected Machine Agent. So this is already installed, but in a case where like it is not installed, it's gonna first download it. Okay, it's install this agent, and then second step, what it would do, it would run a few commands because it's already authenticated. It has service principal. It would say AZ connected machine agent within this subscription, within this RG, and within this location, and it would just simply create a metadata resource. So you see now it is authenticated now, and now the other steps it's performing 20%, 30%, 60%. Now it would say that it has already created. So now we have successfully onboarded this machine to Azure Arc. If we go here to Azure portal, within Azure Arc, can you see that there is no Arc VM2 here? Okay, you have 1 and 3. So when I go and refresh, we have got now 2. So this is a brand new Arc resources created, and I can go and delete whatever I can do with it. It's not gonna harm in any way. So this is the onboarding method. And now just to give a full picture of, because we have this section where we give an overview of Azure Arc. So this is one portion of Azure Arc where you have connected machines with Azure Arc. You can on board, off board, and you can enable services which we will see later. Another thing is this: we can also create Kubernetes AKS on your on-premise Azure local environment. So you can see that it's exactly same type of AKS what we see in Azure. On this AKS, actually, I have deployed application as well. So if you see, you would see there is a node pool is there, extension, and
So you're saying you can run Kubernetes on-prem and then manage within.
exactly,
Azure Arc?
exactly.
And what would be the benefit of that?
Let's
If
say
you're using your own.
a customer has some legal regulatory requirement that they cannot run the application within a public cloud. Plus, there is some component setting locally, and you are not allowed to take those data outside. So you want to keep running the application next to the data itself.
I have a question. So when we want to onboard any server to Azure, so do we need internet to be enabled all the time on the server?
There are two methods. Okay, first method is public endpoint, which we saw that So in a normal environment, you have a new security admin. There is a firewall. So there are certain public endpoints of Azure, let's say, which can be reachable over internet. So you have to ask your security team to whitelist those ones. Okay, and these are purely Microsoft. Just like when you enable Windows updates for a server. So the security admin on the firewall, they whitelist all the Windows. You are similar fashion, but there is another approach as well. If you are a customer where public connectivity is not allowed on the servers, so there is you can create privately scope for Azure Arc server. So what it would do the similar type of thing what we do with all other private endpoints in Azure. Like it would create a private endpoint and it would require a certain private zone to be created. So your server try to connect those endpoint privately on your within your environment, and then Azure would be in the backend would allow them to reach to the other internal endpoints. So this both options are available.
I have a question, Zahir. So when it comes to like the network topology, right? Where would you usually deploy the Azure Arc resource in the hub, like in the landing zone, or so does it matter?
It does not matter for these. I would say management subscription. Management subscription where you're keeping your Lognaetics workspace and other things. So, or if you prefer like it can be spoke to be created because over there will be no traffic as such like data passing between. It's just like instructions. So, obviously management subscription. In a couple of the customers I've seen, they keep it in a management subscription, one RG, or they could maybe have different RGs created. Let's say, I've seen a customer where they have multiple teams within their IT department, okay, web dev team, network team, security team, systems team. So when they onboard machine, so they have multiple scripts for the onboarding. So because the Active Directory structures are made in a way that it is a OU created for each team service. So when they create a specific script for the systems team, what they do they also provide tags for those scripts. So when the resource is onboarded for systems team server, they go to specific OU and specific RG. So then the RBAC role can be assigned on the RG for the system team as well. So imagine, let's say, if you want your systems team to patch only systems team server, not to the other teams. So vice versa, you can have full control that, other team member cannot see the resources which are related to the other team.
One more question. Like, I cannot understand how can Azure Arc enforce the security. For example, when you earlier said that one of the benefits for Azure Arc is that if you have an old system, Windows 2000 server, whatever, you can still give it updates.
I will show you a slide for that. I think now let's move on.
More slide?
Uh, yeah. Or let me complete quickly the idea for the. So we have virtual machines, we have Kubernetes clusters which we can create using Azure Local, Azure Arc. Then the component related to Azure Local we will discuss later. There is another very interesting part. Using Azure Arc, we can do extend the capabilities for your vCenter and SCVMM using Azure Arc. So what it will do, it will create a resource bridge, a small tiny virtual machine within your environment. Let's say, let's talk about VMware first. So this resource bridge, what it would do, it would connect your vCenter server to Azure Arc. So it would establish a communication bridge. Then what will you will see that all the virtual machine related to vCenter will be visible here, and then you can perform operations like start, stop, and all those features. So the concept is that bring as much as control and information and access for the admin in single console. Similarly, we can have SCVMM, we can create a resource bridge within your Hyper-V environment where SCVMM is running, and then the same operation to manage your virtual machine using SCVMM through Azure Arc Portal is also possible. We have Azure Arc enabled SQL servers. So let's say, imagine you have multiple SQL servers running in your environment, and you would like to see their performance. You would like to see perform best practices. All these things we will cover in the upcoming slides, but I'm just giving you a quick idea about that. So there are multiple options you can perform on Arc enabled SQL servers for Postgres SQL, for MySQL Server, and SQL Managed Instance. These are the three candidates which you can create on your Azure local machines. So you can create Azure local instance and then deploy these data services with the same type of features. So imagine the feature which you enjoy on Azure for Azure SQL Managed Instance, the same set of capabilities, features, you can have it running in your own environment. And just to answer your question, this is the feature, extended security update for Windows Server. So what it does, first you need, as a first best practice or step, you need to onboard your legacy operating systems to Azure Arc. So let's say you have Windows Server 2012 or that it is onboarded. Then what we will do, we will go to extended security update. There is the license has to be created. So it's a core-based license. So let's say 8 cores, 16 cores, you have to match it. And then it's once you enable it, you have to associate this license to the one which you to the server which you onboarded in the previous step. Let's say your Windows Server 2012 R2 machine. And then what will happen? When we will go to Azure Update Manager, this machine will start appearing there. And when you will perform checked updates, one-time update. So similarly, Microsoft would ensure that these legacy operating systems for which if you go directly to Microsoft Catalog, there is no updates available. But because of this extra service, because separate service, when it's like it will start coming in your Azure bill that for the CSU license for this many cores, which is assigned, within your environment, this is the bill. So it's a billing service, but it is exclusively available with Azure Arc only. So if you don't onboard these machines to Azure Arc, you cannot enjoy that. Similarly, we will see few other options. Let's start with other slides. Okay, so I think you all can hear me. No need of mic, I guess.
Your voice is loud and clear.
Okay, perfect. So for Arc-enabled servers, as we saw that, they could be Windows Linux machine, VM or bare metal, and first benefit with after we onboard our machines to Azure Arc is that you can see inventory across your environment. So this is very well understood by everyone. Another thing is this. Um, just like Azure Virtual Machine, you have a base agent with sitting in Azure Virtual Machine, IS Virtual Machine, the native ones. It is called Azure Guest Virtual Machine Agent. Lovely. So in Azure Arc, we have another agent called Azure Arc Connected Machine Agent. It is exactly same type of agent, and they both follow an extension model. What is extension model is that in the base agent does not have any extension until unless administrator goes and say, okay, I would like to enable monitoring on this machine. I would like to enable patching on this machine. I would like to enable change tracking. I would like to enable MD, the Defender for Cloud extension. So as much as extension you would like to onboard, this is a very lightweight extension model. So this way you can enable those features and functionalities on the Arc machines. Similarly, once your machines are onboarded to Arc, just like you create Azure policies for native IS virtual machine, you can create policies. So one example I could give, like, let's say you want all your Arc machine, like you, let's call them your on-premise machines. Okay. The moment they get onboarded to Arc, they are enrolled for Azure monitoring. So from the day first, like, and it is all can be done automatically. Another example could be like, the moment our machines are onboarded, enable the MD extension. You can have as many as policies you want. Like, as you know that there are built-in policies and there are custom policies. So you can leverage both of them. Another aspect is that because Arc resources, once the Arc enabled servers get created, you can enable intra-managed identity. One example I could give, let's say you are running a SharePoint on-premise, okay? And this database is located in Azure SQL managed instance. So, and you would like to grant permission, and in the code, you would like to connect your application to your SQL database, but you do not want to have user ID and password for the database. You would like to go for passwordless authentication, like, So what we can do, we can go and enable the intra ID system managed identity for this Arc machine. So once the system managed identity is enabled, it would create an app registration in the intra ID portal. And then what we will do, we will simply go to SQL managed instance and grant permission on based on that system managed identity of the Arc resource. This way, when your application tries to connect to the database, it does not need to pass any user ID and password. So it's all passwordless. This is one example. So imagine, like, your resources which are on-premise, physical or virtual machine, sitting somewhere in a data center, but you are fully compliant and you are 100% integrated with the intra-ID ecosystem. Then we can have server security baseline and RBAC. And most importantly, like, different Arc resources are there for different teams. As we discussed the example of the, you have different teams and you want to ensure that the teams which are responsible for the assets, only they can perform operations. So using RBAC, you can use. Uh,
That's actually very interesting. I didn't know you can enable Intra ID on an Azure Arc machine.
Okay, so see, this is there is sometime I've seen with some customer there is a confusion because imagine, this is again a big Active Directory domain joined environment. Okay, you have, let's say, 200 servers. Okay, you have 100 machines running as Azure IS native virtual machine, and then you have 100 on-premise servers. So sometime because, in group policy we are using for the onboarding process. So maybe, sometime we would think, okay, I've seen some customers, they are trying to install this agent for Azure Virtual Machine. So I put this slide just to clarify that Azure Virtual Machine has this agent by default already available. We do not, this onboarding for Azure Arc Connected Machine agent is purely and exclusively only for your on-premise virtual machine. So, this is a very fundamental concept. So, and as you can see that they are exactly side by side two agents, and they are using the same extension model. You can enable multiple type of extension on these two agents and enjoy the benefit. Okay, and now if Fatma, if you can click on this link. Okay, so this is the one of you have asked about the Oracle part. So if you come down, there is this article would tell us, like, all the supported Windows or Linux or other Linux releases where you can install Arc agent. So you can see it's a quite extensive list. If you have installed Oracle Linux, and there is a Red Hat Linux also available. So I guess, like, it is doable.
I have one question about the services you're talking about, like Kubernetes cluster and MySQL and SQL Server. For that, like, if you want to not go with the on-prem, but the multi-cloud servers, maybe AWS, there is some RDS MySQL services running. Is there any limitation for that, like in order to install the agent there, or you can like for the additional service other than machines, can you connect to any multi-cloud service?
First of all, like with the agent part, as long as it is supported, you can do. Regardless wherever it is running, like wherever it is created, it's 100% doable. Because the agent does not see where I'm running, what type of environment, what it's just purely see compatible with this operating system, really well. If it is compatible, it would like just like any other MSI package, like go and further execute. Um, for AKS, as you asked, so this AKS SQL managed instance, they can be created when you are running Azure Local. That's your Azure Stack HCI, which is rebranded as Azure Local. I will show you how we can do that. Fatima, can you? Okay, so let me now ask.
So I want to know with you, what's the server requirement?
Just outbound connectivity, no inbound connectivity at all. So now we are seeing a small demo, like from a asset point of view or inventory point of view. So you can see that all my Arc machines, they are added here, and the more tags metadata you supply, the more rich your inventory becomes. So let's say if I can have tags defined here. So thing in my test environment, I am not using tags. But again, like the idea is that you get all the inventory from the machines, all the data which you supply, and tags and other things you can they can be part of different RGs, and also this information is available. Okay, we have seen the onboarding, so I think I can skip that. We have seen that, how we can onboard our machine to Azure Arc. We have seen that. Just one example, let's say if you want to go and explore within your environment, so how you can do onboarding at a scale. So one of the very common example is this, like, this script, you can add it as a group policy preference. Okay, create a group policy and link to your OU where all your domain joined machines are located. So what it would do, the next group policy cycle, it would create that task schedule job and execute the script. And this way, all your servers will be automatically onboarded. You don't have to do anything. So this is a very nice feature for people, those who are using other orchestration or management tools such as configuration manager, SCCM, Ansible. They can also, execute the same script. It depends on customer, from customer to customer, this can be changed based on your own flexibility and your requirement. You can execute the script and it would onboard the machine into Arc. So there is another type of resource within Azure Arc. It is called Arc enabled SQL server. So let's explore this one. What are the benefits that, first of all, this is also a very common problem within customer environment, is that if you ask any customer how many SQL servers you are having, you will not get a easy answer, because SQL server, the developer, the dev team, they would install it express edition, a standard edition, developer edition. So it's spread across multiple environment, and especially when it comes to cloud migration, like oftentimes it's not very easy to get the idea how many databases we have, how many SQL servers are there. So and the very nice feature is of this is that when you let's say you have an on-premise machine where you are, whether it is physical or virtual, and you are running SQL Server instance. When you onboard this machine to Azure Arc would automatically sense, okay, there is a SQL running, so I will run and install this extension called Arc enabled SQL Server. And when you do this, all these amazing features are available. Like, you can see on the top, it is the resource type is SQL Server instance. So, then you can, there is, for the same server, there is another resource, which is a normal connected machine resource, which is there. But with this view, you get more details, and we will see what are those features. And another benefit is that you can get the intra-ID support for this SQL server. So you can, this SQL server can be managed and for the outbound connectivity, you can enable intra-ID authentication on that. So we said that inventory and managed backup is another very nice feature that, let's say if you would like to manage the backups for this on-prem SQL server, you can manage it from the portal. You can see performance dashboard, how your SQL server is performing. Imagine it's very easy and intuitive, like, you can easily see that. This is again very important feature. Let's say you are planning for the cloud migration. How many connections are coming to the SQL server? How many applications are connecting? Sometimes application inventory is not available with the customers. So with this, once you click here, you would see all the connections coming to the SQL server. So you easily know, okay, this XYZ server is connecting. So maybe this application is also dependent on the SQL server. So when I plan the migration, I will take both this application along with the SQL server. Let me show you this.
This performance dashboard. What is the scope of this performance dashboard? It is a SQL server based or database based?
Let's see. So see, I am here in the same Arc console, and then I click on my one of the Arc machines, and this is exactly showing you SQL Server instance. So when you come here and let's say start with the performance dashboard. So this is, I guess, primarily based on the machine level, not the database level. So you can see all the data coming from the machine itself, like, how your disk, IO network, CPU memory is doing. And from the top, if we see what are the...
See a database filter.
Sorry, I got a question.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Let's say if you connect your SQL base or like on-prem services, servers to Arc Azure, what would be the data flow exactly? If I have a real database, will that database leave the on-prem services?
No, not at all. It's just
information.
It's just the heartbeat data. Like, any agent which you install on machine. Let's take an example of SCCM. Okay, in SCCM, there is again an agent sitting on the machine. So this agent is
For those who don't know it.
configuration management system, like, or like, let's take an example of any agent-based systems. Like, you have a agent sitting on your machine, a binary installation, and it knows, okay, my server is this, and I need to reach to this server and keep alive that, okay, I am alive. And whatever the instruction server will send me, once I perform those actions, I need to send back the acknowledgement. Nothing more than that. There is no such concept.
But this Azure app, is it that by default, once you have it installed on the server, it's going to have the SQL extension? Is it by default, or you have to choose that?
No, okay, but when you, if this SQL is already running, this would automatically install it. So you don't have to do. But if you would like to customize this behavior, okay, that, maybe I don't want this to happen, okay? I don't want, in some cases, maybe a customer may opt this idea that I want to do it manually, or maybe I don't want this at all. So there is a area where you go and disable this feature. So it's 100% manual.
Backup, for the backup, how do you take backup from here? Where will be the
I
repository?
will show you.
This is
You were saying something?
This Arc feature is available in personal.
Yes, Arc is it's a very old service, like not something new. So it's very widely available across all regions.
Both managed service and SQL VM is available here, right?
Yes, yes.
So
This is a Arc feature, like not any special feature, like wherever you are running Arc, this would automatically be there.
So it can replace the backup, the external third-party company
No.
backup solutions.
Actually, it is I will show you this backup feature is nothing but a managed backup. Let's say, when you install SQL Server on, you define some certain paths, MDF file, LDF file, and then the last and disk and backup location.
So whatever is defined in the SQL Server as a default backup location, it will do it.
It won't replace the third-party backup
No, no,
solutions.
100%. If you're using Veeam, Commvault, or anything like, or even Azure Backup, those will stay as it is. Like, it's just giving you a feature, like, if you would like to operate, like, an easy way for administrator to enable it.
What about monitoring, performance monitoring?
That portion will also come. We will cover that in details. So let's say, again, because it's an Arc resource, you can manage your updates from here. Another thing is best practice assessment. So you can schedule best practice assessment, I think in my case it is scheduled for later part, but I will see if on my other server it is enabled. Then this view, if you see, all my databases which are running inside the SQL server are visible here. So you get this idea. Now imagine if you would like to query this using Microsoft Graph API, like, I would not look for this server, but I would say, give me all the databases running across my all Arc enabled machines, and mention their server name. So imagine with one query across all your environment, you are filtering your databases and you get full inventory, and then you plan your migration and whatever optimization you are doing. So the data is available, and now you can take action on that data. Uh, you can also have a availability group. Let's say if it is configured here, you can see the backup portion. Let me show you from the other machine. So you can see that, on this machine, I have two databases running, AdventureWorks and ArchiveDB. So for when I enabled the backup, it has enabled the backup, and it is stored on my local SQL disk of the SQL server. So when I restore, point in time, I can restore the databases. Plus, if I see the assessment part. Okay. So for this one, so if you remember, in our old days, we used to have a Microsoft baseline security analyzer or best practice analyzer. It is same concept, and or these days you go for Microsoft assessment, like from service.microsoft.com portal, you have SQL assessment, Hyper-V assessment. So similar concept. This is exactly the same thing. Which sometime back I would say it was a paid service. It was a quite expensive service. But with this, you are getting the same set of recommendations, best practices after comparing to your internal, configuration. So Microsoft provides you all that. These are the issues I find. Like if you go and fix those issues, so you are always covered. Like you can take benefit of these assessments.
Can we see the details of those issues?
Sorry.
Can we see the details of those issues?
Yes, rather. So let's say, so you can see, like there is a high, medium, optimize the ad hoc workload, heavy, old DB. So like SQL related best practices it is providing you. Another feature I would like to show you, which is very cool.
Thank you. I'd like to see the objects. The objects which are
Sure. Okay. So you can see this option. So imagine like, you have this SQL server running on premise, you onboarded to Arc, and now you have this data, all the database information. And now on top of all this, Microsoft is providing you a recommendation that, okay, you can like, migrate these databases to SQL Server managed instance based on the compatibility. Okay, Azure SQL database is saying no, not really, because maybe on the databases level, you're using some views, you are consuming some configuration. I don't remember, like in SQL you have some views and other stuff like, if those are sometimes not compatible with the SQL Azure SQL database because it's a PaaS instance and not a full-fledged SQL server. However, if you see the readiness for the SQL server running in IS virtual machine and SQL managed instance, why it is green? Because these two instances give 100% compatibility because they're full-fledged SQL server. This is the reason they are green. So now if you would like to opt the migration, we also have from the same Azure Arc enabled server dashboard, we can migrate the database as well. Let me show you this. Yes. So let's say now I have seen the recommendation and I would like to opt the migration approach. What we will do first, I would say that I already have a created target. So in my case, so migration started successfully. So let's say give you an idea of what it looks like. So from this menu, you can see all the databases created locally on the SQL server. And then you can select the database which you would like to migrate, and then uh, we can migrate it from here to the target instance, and it would ask you next, and then it would start replicating, but it requires the backup to be restored first on the target, and then it would do log shipping and migrate. Let me quickly start the other slide because I think we have less time left now.
Zahir, in terms of cost and billing, is it free, your Arc, or is it depending on the type of service you're using? For example, VM or AKS or database. I mean, what's the
How it happens, like the basic Azure Arc component, like the running agent is 100% free, no problem. But let's say, take an example of monitoring. When you enable monitoring on the server, it would collect the data over time and it would ingest into log analytics was correct. Now that is a paid component. So, so similar patch management is free. There are certain components that are free, but in certain components, Sentinel, like, if you also again getting all the data from the on-prem servers, so that will be paid one. Just to fast forward quickly because I have so many other topics to cover. Patch management. This is one of the very cool feature based on my own personal experience. I'm coming from an environment where we have hundreds of machines. Okay, we have like in my past previous company, we have seen like third-party tools for patching. Microsoft, a WSUS-based group policy approach, SCCM and all. Especially, I'm talking about server perspective. Okay, Windows-based server or Linux patching. This is not very easy to and when you have more machines every month you're following every patch Tuesday you're patching machines and all. This gets difficult. So let's take a quickly first approach how we evolve over time. So WSS and group policy based approach. What happens used to if you all have done this in the past, like you know what I mean. Sometimes you enable the policy, you go and approve the server. Patches are not visible on server. Sometimes machines are not visible in WSS. So it was a bit difficult, and the delivery was not consistent, and always you run into problem. With SCCM approach, if it is the same SCCM server being used with clients or servers, then some server admins sometimes have concerns. Sometimes agent installation is difficult. Sometimes some other softwares are getting installed on the server which you don't want. Sometimes when you go and initiate the deployment of patches, you say as soon as possible, but actually it would not come immediately. So that those type of issues were there. Lastly, myself also, we have tried some other third-party tools, let's say Avanti, Landguard, and some other software. But again, sometimes RBAC is a big issue with these third-party tools. If you have multiple teams, then you ensure that security team should only see their servers. But because the tool does not have RBAC functionality, so eventually either you have to give full admin access, so then the guy sees all servers. So all in all, it was not very easy. Can you go to the next slide? So there is a service available in Azure called Azure Update Manager. So the same service which you can use for both native IaaS virtual machine and Arc enabled resources. So once you onboard machine from on-prem or other cloud resources to Azure Arc, you can very much use this service. And what it provides, you can do one-time patching, you can do bulk patching, you can do automatically patches of patch installation for both Linux and Windows machines, and you can see reports. And again, because of the Arc provides RBAC capabilities, so you can assign various teams their own machines. So when I log into Azure Update Manager, I'm a plain support guy. Like I'm not a server admin. I only see my resources and I can do and patch. Let me show. Can you go to the next slide? Uh, so this is the interface. We will also see this in action. So again, as I said, these are the supported options. We can do one-time update, bulk machine update, scheduled automated patching. And another interesting feature is this. Let's say if you have reboot, installed the patches but did not reboot, so it would also show you these machines are pending for reboot. So you go and only reboot those machines, and you can ability to include or exclude patches and reports. Uh, this is also, let's say, if you are giving this access to your support team, let's say server admins are busy, you want one support engineer who does not have local admin rights, but he wants to reboot server after the patches are done. So these are the option available. Once the patches are installed in a change window, he can go and say reboot. Okay, always. So it would initiate the reboot on the machine. Also, if you are the admin, but you want to install patches but do not want to reboot, so you can opt the option never reboot. So both options are available. You can do that. Next slide. Let me give you a quick demo around this. Okay, so you can see this one is showing me around 54 machines because as I said that we can use the same tool for both IaaS native virtual machine and Arc enabled machine. So I'm saying for now, don't show me Azure virtual machine. So these are purely Arc enabled machine. You can see we do have here machines, Windows and Linux. And on some machine, it is showing me that, okay, I have one updates available, on some other updates are available. So just to see if, what we can do, first option, or maybe let me do for the Windows one. So first of all, there is a concept here. Um, it is called periodic assessment. So, I can enable periodic assessment on this machine or on all my machine. So every day, every 24 hours, it would do an assessment on all my machines. It would nothing but go and check how many updates are available. Okay. So it would go and check and would update the database in update manager that, okay, on these machines, these many patches are available, these many are installed. Okay, this machine is pending for the reboot. So it's like a way to keep your inventory up to date. This normally we should enable on all machines. Another option is that, let's say, if you would like to do check updates. So one time you are doing on demand option, like, you want to check for the update. Right now it's a Tuesday evening. Okay, you think that Microsoft has already released the patches. You want to go and instantly want to check. You do not want for the periodic assessment. You want to go and check for the updates. This is possible. So for this machine, operation is running. We take another example. So now for this machine, let's say Arc VM5. I want to do one-time updates. So on this one, two updates are available. I would say, show me which updates are available. I can exclude a particular update. I can include a particular KB ID. I can do that. So now over here, I want to, let's say if this is something not a production server, I would like to go and reboot the machine. I can say, okay, reboot if required. I can say never reboot based on my requirement. Or if I want to reboot, I can say, okay, always reboot. So these are the option I would say, never reboot. And I have initiated the installation. Another option is that, uh, let's say I want to show this is very cool feature. So imagine like you are a customer, you have so many test and dev machines, okay? And you do not want, your team to do things manually. So what you can do, I have created this maintenance plan. It has some dynamic scope and plus resources. So I have added all my test sandbox machines, which are Arc enabled, or maybe they could be Azure IaaS virtual machines as well, both type of machine. And I have selected a schedule, and then I defined what type of patches. And then what it will do, it would automatically on every third Friday morning, early morning, it would install the patches. So I'm not using dynamic, but I have specifically added the resources. So for these set of machines, on the third Friday, early morning, for these type of updates, Windows and Linux, these type of updates, install it. So, this way, imagine like, it offload a big burden from you that, for all your sandbox development machines, you can automatically patch them. You don't have to worry about it. So this is very cool feature. So,
Good question there.
yeah, go ahead.
Because sometimes there's an error. You used to revert back to snapshot. So in this case, if you automate it, would there be a snapshot before?
No, see,
The snapshot of
this is all about patching, like, it's just like any other tool. But if you have certain concern for one particular machine, I would not recommend to add over here because, this is an automated patching process. So, I assume that you are doing for certain machines which you are okay with it. So I think this should be fine.
No, you cannot. I mean, sometimes this update might have error. After installing the update, you observe that the server is not coming up again. So you need to revert to before the update was applied. So if we face touch here, even we have some development environment or UAT that are very critical. So in that case, what can we do?
We will follow the same approach which you used to follow. Imagine if you are using this or any other tool, and, so what you should have backup. Okay. So before doing any changes,
VM level.
sorry,
This is VM level.
so VM level, you can take a virtual machine back. Again, this is again, I would say it's regardless of you follow manual approach or you use a tool based approach because it's the same thing, correct? If you install patches, there could be an issue with if you applied patches manually or automatically. So just to pass forward with the other slide, I think over here with the update manager, you can see history. Okay, what are the operations you perform? You can see this one. You can enable these features using policy. So update manager is simple yet but very powerful tool. You can enable settings for the hot patching machines as well. Like you can enable the orchestration as well. Okay, 30 minutes are left. So let me jump to the other section. Um, so for Defender part, once you onboard machine to Azure Arc, because on the Defender for Cloud portal, you have gone to the configuration for your subscription and you have enabled the server plan for Azure Arc. So this would be an automatic process. You don't have to do anything. Like, as soon as servers become part of the environment, MD extension will be installed, machine will be onboarded to Defender for Cloud, and you get all the, feed data from the machines. Similarly, for Azure policies, as we said earlier as well, like, all your machines, you can, enable custom policies, built-in policies, enable monitoring, do this and that. So everything is possible with the policies. Governance, when we say it, you can enable tags. So based on the tags, you can define cost center, you can define various team, and then you can use those tags. I can give you one example. Let's say in my one of the customer apps, we have implemented this one. Let's see, when you enable monitoring for the machines, you get an email from Azure, correct? What if you would like to customize that email, okay? And you would like to ensure that if the machine has or Azure Arc resource has a tag security team, then it should go to Mohsin. You are the security engineer. So how you would do that? you will create a logic app, and then you can integrate Azure Monitor data payload with Azure Logic app. So logic app would read the all resources tag, and based on the tag value, it would process the email accordingly, and then you can format it. So it's a very nice feature. So with governance policies tags, you can implement everything. So this is extended security update. Uh, yeah, go ahead.
So you put together all your machines to one scope, and then you apply like a hierarchy management system, or it's automatically applied.
Which portion of the service you're talking about?
Talking about the general idea. Together all your resources, on-prem resources, and multi-cloud resources to one place, which is Azure Arc.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to do the hierarchy management system.
Yeah, when you say hierarchy, I assume that you're talking about how we segregate the resources.
Yes.
Yeah, we can very much like create multiple resource group within Azure, and those RGs can house these resources. Like you can create for each team, each department, each entity. So like it's same concept as if you remember in Active Directory, you create multiple OUs, organizational unit. Same thing, folder hierarchy. So and I think this we have already.
You enforce the governance to a certain machine over the other, right?
It's based on the customer requirements. So I would say all the Arc machines belong to certain team based on certain requirements. I can create policies. Let's say if those policies are available in built-in policies, wonderful. Otherwise, you can create your own custom policies. One example could be that no one can onboard a machine Arc machine. No one can onboard Arc machine into any other region other than Qatar Central. Okay, so when you apply this policy to let's say your management group or subscription level, the moment let's say you as an admin try to create a Arc resource in let's say West Europe, it would not allow you. It would say sorry, the script will fail because there is a deny effect in the Azure policy. Would say because the administrator has set the policy. So you're putting a governance that you are ensuring that in your environment, certain best practices regulations should to be followed. And Azure provides tons of like those, policies based on regulations and other requirements. This we have covered, so it's fine. Azure monitoring. This is again a very powerful, very amazing feature. I would say, let's say, I personally have migrated a customer where like we were earlier using on-prem. They were using operations management, okay, and they were using a few other like third-party monitoring solutions. Now, customer wanted to ensure that they see one single pane for monitoring in terms of like one solution to be used for all type of monitoring, whether it is Azure native IaaS virtual machine, it is on-premise machines. These are machines deployed in other GCP and AWS. So how do we achieve it? We can use Azure Arc with Azure Monitor. So when we onboard for machines to Azure Arc, then we can enable Azure Monitor extension. What it does, using data collection rule and data collection endpoint, we will see them. What you do, you direct the machine that, okay, for IS logs, for performance data, for Windows security events, all those type of data, send it to this log analytics workspace. You can have multiple log analytics workspace. One is for monitoring, one is for Sentinel. So based on this, you are collecting all the telemetry data, the performance data from all the machines and ingesting into log analytics workspace. And based on that, you can create alerts. So it's the same approach as how you are managing your monitoring for Azure native virtual machines. Similarly, because of the Arc onboarding, you can enjoy the same benefit. Let me show you. So let's say we take an example of, again, I'm for all the services management or enablement, I go back every time to the same portal, Azure Arc. So let's say for one of my Azure Arc machines, if you go to extension, as we mentioned earlier, that it's everything is based on extension model. So the base agent is just provide you the connectivity, and it's the administrator who decides which functions or functionalities needed to be enabled. So you can see there is an extension here, Azure Monitor Windows Agent. So this is the extension which would enable the monitoring functionality from this one. And what I have done, you this is my log analytics workspace. So one portion is that installing an agent and extension on the machine. And second thing is you have to define where the logs will go. So if you see here within my agent, like, on this log analytics workspace, I have reporting 10 Windows machine and 10 Linux machines. So it means I am collecting data from around 20 machines from my on-prem environment. And based on that, if I go to logs, so this is the first, I would say, run a heartbeat. Okay. So this is a live data coming from my log analytics workspace that in last 24 hours, these many servers are reporting to log analytics workspace. What we can run other type of query is this, let's say configuration management. Configuration management is something like, it gathers data from each machine. Okay, this service was running, this service was stopped, these registries were changed, these file location were changed. So, those type of data. So, and I'm just giving you example of one or two. There are unlimited possibilities, because you know uh, when you bring the data based on your own configuration, then you can play with this data. You can create alerts. One of the example would be, you have a SQL server, okay, on-premise running, and you enable change tracking on this machine, and then what it will do, it will send you the alerts for the SQL server. Whenever the service goes down and you stop the service, it would shoot the alert, because the data is keep coming to the log analytics workspace, and based on that, you can enable the alerting on those machines. Another thing is this. There is a feature called. Um, so look at this slide. So over here, again, we saw that, this is how the representation look like when you have machines reporting to log analytics workspace. Then you can create service alerts, like, you can run these queries and it would return you the value. And based on that, you can create alerts. We can see the change tracking, and let me show you uh, some workbook which shows us the. So see, I'm selecting now the same log analytics workspace, which is where the currently all my Arc enabled machines are pointed to. So when I do this, it's gonna bring all the extensive memory, monitoring data from all my machines. So I can see what is the CPU utilization, memory utilization, hard disk utilization, process-wise, what are the utilization. Now, let's keep this in mind that this was originally my on-prem machine. So where is your on-prem machine, and this is Azure. So this is Azure Arc, which does all the magic. It connects your on-premise resources to Azure, and then you can benefit the same set of Azure capabilities on your on-premise or resources which are located any place. Similarly, I have another workbook as well. Again, this is based on the type of thing which I have selected. So let's say I'm interested only for Arc machines. So it would show me that you have these many Ubuntu machines, Linux machines. Um,
So the data is in a log analytics workspace,
exactly,
and you're just building a workbook on top of it.
100%. And
And for those of you who prefer more Power BI, you can easily get convert the workbook into a Power BI dashboard. So maybe even your management is not there if you don't want to log into the portal.
Exactly. And based on this data, which is available and collected from Azure Monitor, these type of alerts which we can create. My favorite ones are Windows Service Monitoring alerts. You know, and the interesting thing is this: not only for Microsoft-based products, as long as there is a service created on Windows Server by a third-party application which is running on the server, once you see the service is happen, if the service is visible, you can very much monitor that. Like, you know, the data would be coming and then you can create alerts. So SQL, IIS, all type of Hyper-V, you know, all Exchange, Active Directory, anything which is running, you can do performance alerts at the end. These are performance alert, very nicely, nice to have. And perfect. SNMP trap. So, okay, now someone can say that, what about SNMP? You know, Azure Monitor, can he get data or monitor my network devices, my switches and all? So yes, what we can do for that, we can create a Linux machine, okay? It would run the syslog server on that and on a Linux machine. And then I can direct my appliances, my switches, routers towards this collector machine, which is in Azure. It's a IIS virtual machine running a syslog server. And then on the syslog server, I can define, okay, send it to Loganalytics Workspace private endpoint IP address. And it would be sending it over there. And then once the data comes back to the Loganalytics Workspace, again, all the alerts I can create. Azure Local. Okay. This is the, how much time we have?
Was it 20, less than 20 minutes?
Okay, lovely. So, what is Azure Local? This is rebranded from Azure Stack HCI, and this is nothing but allows Microsoft customer to run Azure style services like on their on-premise. It's not only about virtual machine, but you can run consistent virtual machine, container services, data services, Azure SQL, managed instance, Kubernetes, AKS on your on-premise environment. So if you can take me to the next one. So this is for sure, like very well understood by all of us. Not all application can be migrated to Azure or to any cloud. Not Azure in general, but to any cloud. If you are running, a local inferencing AI application, local LLMs, and your data is sitting next to it, like you have a requirement that you cannot take the data to the cloud. Definitely, you have a requirement you can run create AKS locally, which is fine. You have a mission critical application like you are a retail shop, like so Azure Local has now reduced their requirements like from 2 nodes minimum, now it is 1 node, from 4 disks, which is one disk. So now there are places where you need to run the operations locally. So Azure Local can best fit there. You have a factory. Imagine it's an oil rig, okay? You are running some CCTV camera based analysis, like on the rig floor, whether HSE is being followed or not. They are wearing the helmet and other safety equipment. So imagine if you know do not have the presence locally, like the servers and the application on the rig floor level. So you cannot monitor this over the WAN VSAT connection, which is very slow. So in such cases where latency is very minimal latency, sub-millisecond latency is required. So those places where you cannot afford the disconnection from the cloud, like if the connectivity towards the cloud is disturbed, you will be out of business. So those type of places, 100%, we can keep. This is a use case for us. If we can go to the next slide. So the architecture is that first of all, the first layer is validated hardware. So we can have 1 to 16 nodes cluster. Okay, these are bare metal physical servers from OEM, Cisco, Huawei, HP, Lenovo, and all these things. So on top of that, what you run local instance. So you run a Azure Local operating system, which you download from Microsoft site, and along with the Hyper-V resource bridge and storage spaces direct. So what it does, it's a converged infrastructure. Like within the same server, you have storage and compute. So, and then, if you remember Apollo server, the same concept, like, you mirror the disk between the two servers. So, if one server fails, again, the other server has the data. So, along with failover cluster, Hyper-V, resource-based storage spaces direct, you form a cluster. Okay. On top of that, you can run Azure local virtual machine. So now this is everything which is related to local. You will see these are local virtual machines running on premise, but it provides the same level of capabilities which are provided in Azure IaaS virtual machine. You can also run Azure virtual machine desktop session host. Multi-session hosts are also possible here. And in my lab, like I have deployed a Kubernetes services, okay, AKS cluster sitting on my Azure local environment, and I have deployed application Nginx services deployed. Imagine your AKS is running locally, and if you want, like for some reason, if you want it from internet, you can give access, or for you can also use this for many other purposes. Now, once you have these things deployed on Azure Local, again, the same concept of Azure Arc, you can utilize all the Azure native services to interact, to integrate, and work alongside to build powerful solution locally within your environment. So, if you can take me to the next slide. Okay, there are primarily two fashion or two models to deploy Azure Local. One is a connected model where the control plane is located in Azure. Okay, so just like with Azure Arc, we are issuing all the commands, configuration, management, deployment through Azure portal. But maybe some places where customers are not allowed due to some regulation and all, it's like a military and other places where you need 100% disconnection, but you would like to take the benefit of Azure Local, so it comes as Azure Local disconnected. What it does, there is a one appliance virtual machine sitting running inside the virtual machine, which kind of mimic the same behavior as Azure portal. So you have subset of features available here. You can manage your environment using this appliance virtual machine.
So Zahir, you have Azure Local in your environment, like what type of resources or features could you use?
I think we will.
Okay.
Okay, so first of all, is virtual machine. Uh, the basic thing is the virtual machine. We can create virtual machine on, and these are Hyper-V servers. Okay, so imagine you have a two-node Azure local instance. Okay, it's nothing but Hyper-V on these two, along with failover cluster and which other features to which are same as Azure environment. So you are running virtual machine from on both nodes. If you, for some reason, if you are doing maintenance, you can move virtual machine between the nodes, and you can have the HA for the environment, and you can enjoy the virtual machine part. If you go to the second one, images. So there is a concept here, images. I think if I show them in the portal, it would be much more easier.
Do we have like
Yes, I will quickly go over that. So you can see I'm here now in Azure local environment. Okay, this is my Azure local cluster created. Um, First, let me show you what is how it looks like. So I have got a two-node Azure local cluster created. Each node has 96 GB memory and couple of cores. I have created a few virtual machines running here. So if you see this, it looks like similar to a native virtual machine. You have all the feature like, same type of operation, stop, start, and all those things, networking. You can connect to it. You can add multiple disks.
It's connected or disconnected?
It is connected. You can see it's running. So it's,
I mean the connected the design. This is the
it's a
connected.
connected one. It's a connected.
Connected. Okay.
And
with a disconnected one, be able to control it from the Azure portal?
exactly. This is the concept. So now because I have a limited time, so I'll move forward with this thing. So there's a logical network concept here. So imagine you are a company, you have multiple server VLANs, okay? So just like any other HA Windows failover cluster you create multiple VLANs as trunk on the server. network ports. Same concept, like you can create multiple VLANs, 192, 168, 100, 200, blah, 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 based on your requirement. And then when you create virtual machine, you will see multiple logical network, and then you associate virtual machine based on their requirement. Another thing is the very interesting one. So AKS. So I think because I have limited time, let me show you over here. Uh,
So the difference between Arc and local is with Arc, you bring your on-prem and you're able to control it from Azure. And with local, you bring Azure to your on-prem. Is it?
Exactly, very nicely explained. Yeah, 100%. So it's like Azure capabilities, you bring it on-prem, like Azure style stuff. So storage path, because as I said, in the backend, it uses the failover clusters. So for storage, you are using cluster shared volumes, okay? And you have multiple shared volumes, and you can define the virtual machine between these two AKS, okay? So this is how it looks like when we deploy. So how you connect to it? There are two components. There is the Arc proxy. So you can see that, I have defined my subscription, my resource group, my cluster name, which I deployed through Azure portal. And once you define these two and start it, so it would, easy connect AKDS proxy cluster and these things. So it would initiate a session or proxy. You can keep this running. And in my second this one, through here. Now you can see that it is exactly the same as if I'm connected to Azure AKS cluster. Okay. Over here, I can use kubectl to deploy the four pods. I can deploy the application and all. And this is my the service IP address, external IP address. This is all deployed from my Azure local environment running on premise, and the look and feel and the capabilities is same as Azure AKS cluster. So this is the Nginx deployed and running from my AKS cluster. I think I have also opened it somewhere here. So this is how it looks like, because my session was timed out. You can see that, you run these commands and you can deploy these things. So this is one of the cool feature. Now let me show a very quick how we can create a resource here. So let's say for a virtual machine. So when you try to create a resource, let's say I can say, now again, see, this is a metadata resource because the machine is created on my Azure local. So I call it AZ local VM, blah, blah. And type is standard. Okay, I wanted to choose the storage path automatically. So now this is the image, like, what I've done for Windows 2019. I downloaded, there's an option when you create image, you can use the marketplace image and it would create a copy locally. And how many processor counts you need, how many memory, do you want it to be become Arc enabled? Yes. And use a public endpoint for the Arc. This is fine, no problem. Make my user account as this one. There is also an option that you can directly join this Windows machine to Active Directory domain right from here. So you just define your details. It would install the extension and your machine will be part of the team. You can add a data disk here, data size, let's say 100 GB, and dynamic disk. Okay. And this is the network interface card, just like the same way you do for the NIC. And I can connect to my production server network, automatically get the IP address, add it, and tags, again, metadata for the tags for the governance part, and we go next. So you have created a virtual machine running in your on-premise environment using Azure. Um, Similarly, you can create many other resources.
Zahir, just for me to also understand, to enable, let's say, if I want to get started with Azure Local, what do I need to do exactly? Do I go and provision it from the Azure portal, or is there like some
No.
sort of thing I install? I need to
So
contact?
let me show this one. So this is some monitoring part. So Okay, this is fine. This I will show, but before to answer this thing, partner solution. So because it's a bare metal hardware you purchase, so there is a OEM certified validated hardware from certain vendors. This, if you go to this search for Azure Local Catalog, so all the partners, their solutions will be listed there based on your requirement. Just like you purchase a physical server, like one server, three server, four server, your capacity requirement, you purchase it, okay, and then it ships, it comes to your environment, you plug it, you just connect the network cable, assign the IP address, and then install the Azure local operating system. I'll show you from where you can download. Once you download that and install, and rest all things are done through Azure portal. So the configuration of the Azure local installation, everything gets done all from the portal itself. So let's say
it's basically an extension of the Azure data center, but in my own data center, in my
Exactly.
physical.
So if you see, if I go to Azure Local, yes, if you see, you can download the local HCI OS. It's a Windows Core Edition. You download it, and once you install it on the server, and then you want to go to the next step, you can go and create an instance. So over here, what it expects from you, that this machine which you have already installed, it must be connected to Azure Arc, because again the bridge concept is Azure Arc, which is a fundamental. So once machine is visible here, you can see it here. It would be visible here that okay, it's saying right now not it's not eligible because these are not local machines, but the ones which you will install, they will be visible here. You can select them and then just get going, continue your step and it will finish.
So Arc is a prerequisite for local.
Exactly. 100%. So one last for concept I would like to share with you, which is again very cool feature of Azure Local. So right from your so imagine you are saying, okay, Zahir, we are running the machine locally, but what about the disaster recovery? Okay, so what we can do first, let me show this one. Okay, first level, the backup, the disaster recovery. You say you can use Microsoft Azure Backup. You can back up all those virtual machine to a recovery services vault. Whenever there is a corruption after patching, there is an issue, you can restore the virtual machine for the Azure local. It's the same for the Azure virtual machine. Another thing is site recovery. So from Azure portal, you can create a recovery services vault and add all the virtual machines which are running in your Azure local on premise, and then add it and replicate to Azure recovery services vault. So whenever, for some reason, if your Azure local site goes down, your data center is down, you can fail over these virtual machine into Azure. So same virtual machine are running in Azure. And when later your site is back, you can do protect them back again, and they are replicating to on-premise. And then again, you can do failover, so virtual machine comes back to your on-premise data center. Another feature is this: you say no, okay, for some reason, for regulatory purpose, I cannot, you know, replicate them to Azure for data residency or for some other, regulatory requirement. Imagine you can build two Azure local cluster, okay, and one cluster your primary machines are running, and second cluster you can replicate them using Hyper-V replica. So two clusters are replicating their virtual machine. So if one goes down, you can start virtual machine from the other cluster. Another cool thing, which is a preview feature, I think so, it is GA now, which is rack-aware cluster. Some customers, they have requested that we have a two data center within our facility, and we want that Azure local to understand and sense that my machines are cluster aware, my machines or like the environment become cluster aware. So you have two rooms, some racks are here, some racks are there. So when you perform the operations, the data is synchronized between these two rack servers. So half of the services are running from the other rack and half of the services are running from here. And then Lastly, if you are using already a third-party solution like Commvault, Veeam for backup your virtual machine, those you can continue. Like they will be, you just install the agent on Azure local machines and start continue the backup like the way you are doing. Let me show you how I set up the disaster recovery for our Azure local instance. So I am in the Azure local, okay? If I come down to disaster recovery part, so you can see protect virtual machine. And let's say if I see, so because it's my lab environment, just to save my credits of Azure, I sometimes shut down the machine. And you can see that, for these two, they were replicated, and this one even it is showing protected. So, which means that, this was some time back fully replicated. If in a production environment, your machines will be replicated from on-prem to Azure. And whenever it is needed, you can fail over to Azure. And you can add more machines from here, from your Hyper-V side from Azure Local. So this is my local site. And so you can see all my Azure local virtual machines which are running on-prem. I can just add them here. I can include AKS machines if they are needed. And then see, this is the new machine which we created. So it is also available. I can add multiple machines and replicate to my Azure recovery size vault in Azure. And then when needed, I can fail over. And with this, we one very last and very important thing for all of you who would like to test and learn Azure Arc or Azure Local, what you can do, there is a site called Jumpstart. Okay. And whatever you have seen within my environment, I have also used a similar approach. So what it provides you, there are 3 or 4, 5 tracks, like for developers, like they can deploy app services on running on Azure Local. Okay. For data guys, they can run SQL managed instance running on Azure Local. And if somebody would like to try only Arc enabled servers, then what you can do, this is a repository like for, I think this one is even directly you can deploy from here. So let's say what it does, all you need that Azure subscription. So if you're a customer or a student and you already have an Azure subscription, and if you are a customer, then you require a contributor rights on the RG level. And then what it will do when you deploy this, you just need to define a resource group, subscription ID, tenant ID, and it would go and create a virtual machine which will have a nested virtualization inside. It's going to be little like E-series virtual machine, and then it will automatically create Hyper-V and virtual machines inside and would onboard them into Arc. So then what you will have, all the capabilities, in your environment. So you can just play around, like see how it works. If you would like to onboard another machine, you can do that as well. Similarly, so if you see this one, this is Arc box, which means this is for Arc enabled server. It is showing you what feature you can get when you deploy this one. Um, and say, I think for IT Pro. So again, see, it has further list down, like, based on the niche, like, which type of
Persona.
exactly. So you can directly deploy this one here into Azure. And what it would do, it would create something like a virtual machine in Azure, which is local box client. Okay. And this one will have something like
Basically like an accelerator for.
Exactly. So, you will have inside nested virtual machine and the password which you will define over there. It will be similarly, there is another one for Azure Local as well. Yeah, I think so. Okay, done. So, just take note of this website. It is called Jumpstart, and you can have all the tracks available. Just you can deploy the things and start using
And
it.
we probably have learning paths on MS Learn as well, or. Okay, we are on time. For those of you who have questions, maybe we can take them outside, but let's just do quickly, Zahir, let's see who is paying attention.